You don't have any hard feelings against the way Ethan and I asked you questions, do you?
No. I know you guys have your ways. I'm a brother of two sisters, and I totally would do the same thing.
Welcome to Plathville introduced an alternate reality. Barry and Kim Plath raised their 9 children on a massive, isolated farm in Cairo, Georgia. They rejected the secular world with an almost militaristic devotion. The children didn't know what a Coca-Cola tasted like. They didn't know who Spider-Man was. Kim was the unyielding matriarch, homeschooling the kids and enforcing strict modesty, while Barry provided the quiet, theological authority. They pitched themselves as a holy alternative to a broken society, but true investigative journalism reveals that the cracks formed long before TLC ever pitched a pilot. Kim Plath's own past was a stark contrast to the purity she demanded. According to public records and her own admissions, her early life involved college-age rebellion and personal trauma, a past she desperately tried to outrun by overcorrecting with her own children. When their eldest son, Ethan, married Olivia, a sharp, worldly photographer from a similar but free-thinking fundamentalist background, the paradigm shifted. Olivia wasn't just a daughter-in-law. She was a mirror showing the Plath children what freedom actually looked like. And the moment Kim realized she could no longer control the narrative, the holy war began. But the tension wasn't just theological. Deep hidden within family financial records lay a secret betrayal that forced Ethan to choose between his mother and his wife, a choice that would ultimately destroy his marriage. The dominoes didn't just fall. They cascaded in brutal, calculated successions. The initial fracture point manifested in what fans remember as the infamous credit card scandal. Public reports and on-screen confrontations revealed that Kim had been operating a credit card under Ethan's name, quietly collecting rewards and managing the finances without his complete understanding. When Olivia stepped in, demanding financial autonomy for her young husband, the matriarch didn't back down. She retaliated, painting Olivia as a wedge driving a rift through the family. Ethan, caught between a lifetime of psychological programming and his vows to his wife, froze. It was a pattern of avoidance that would define their entire 5-year marriage. While viewers were watching Ethan and Olivia enter a toxic, circular spiral of resentment, a much bigger bomb exploded. In 2022, Kim and Barry shocked the reality TV ecosystem by announcing their own separation after more than 2 decades together. The strict matriarch who had condemned the secular world suddenly shed her conservative wardrobe, bought a dance studio, and was arrested for a DUI. Sources suggest she completely abandoned the very tenets she forced upon her children, moving on to date her son Isaac's flight instructor, Ken Palmer. By the time Ethan and Olivia officially filed for divorce in early 2024, the family was unrecognizable. The architects of Plathville had broken their own rules, leaving their children to pick up the pieces of a shattered belief system. But as the parents chased their new, secular lives, a bizarre cultural inversion took place inside the home, one that left their most devout daughter completely isolated by her own flesh and blood. Why did the Plath family collapse so spectacularly under the media spotlight? Entertainment industry producers point to a phenomenon known as the reality TV curse, but the truth is far more systemic. The TLC machine thrives on finding extreme, insular subcultures and exposing them to the pressures of wealth, fame, and public scrutiny. When you monetize a family's strict religious privacy, you inherently destroy the mechanism that keeps it alive. Industry analysts note that the financial incentives of the show gave the older children a path to financial independence they would have otherwise been denied under Barry and Kim's strict control. Furthermore, PR experts highlight the catastrophic image fallout for Kim Plath. She went from an authoritarian figure of Christian virtue to a tabloid fixture overnight. Her dramatic shift left the brand of Welcome to Plathville heavily compromised. The show shifted from a fascinating study of an alternative lifestyle into a raw, uncomfortable documentary about generational trauma and hypocrisy. The legal and financial filings of 2 concurrent divorces within one small family unit didn't just alienate conservative viewers, it turned the Plaths into a cautionary tale of extreme parenting. And as the corporate cameras kept rolling, the war shifted from the editing bays of Hollywood straight to the toxic battlegrounds of the internet. the internet did not look away. On platforms like TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube, millions of viewers took sides in an increasingly chaotic digital war. For years, public opinion was fiercely divided. One half of the internet branded Olivia Plath a manipulative narcissist who ripped Ethan away from his family and forced him into a modern world he wasn't equipped to handle. The other half fiercely defended her, viewing her as an escaped survivor of a toxic environment, fighting to deprogram a husband who was too weak to stand up to his mother. But as the timeline pushed forward, the online narrative shifted dramatically. Fans began pointing out a jarring, almost tragic hypocrisy. Lydia Plath, the middle daughter who had spent her youth writing prayers on her closet walls and deeply absorbing her parents' conservative teachings, suddenly found herself criticized and alienated by her own family for keeping the very faith they taught her. Recent online commentary and forum debates highlight how the rest of the family, now enjoying modern lifestyles, secular dating, and drinking, treated Lydia like an outsider for refusing to abandon her original values. The social media landscape exploded with outrage, calling out Kim and Barry for programming their children, only to abandon them when the rules no longer served their own personal desires. But beneath the online noise and the tabloid headlines lies a profound, deeply private pain that the cameras could never fully capture. If we strip away the TLC contracts, the viral TikToks, and the dramatic background music, what remains is the emotional toll on the children is devastatingly evident. Ethan Plath, now trying to navigate a modern dating world with a new relationship, carries the visible scars of a man whose entire worldview was flipped upside down. He lost his wife, his childhood innocence, and the unified family he adored. Olivia, speaking out on podcasts, admitted that she considered divorce in the very first year of marriage but stayed out of a paralyzing fear of breaking God's heart and losing her family's love. The sheer weight of trying to heal from fundamentalism, while millions of strangers judge your every breakdown, is a psychological pressure cooker few will ever understand. It is the story of young adults forced to grow up on television, realizing that the people who promised to protect them from the world couldn't even protect them from each other. With the family completely fractured and season renewals hanging in the balance, what is the ultimate fate of the Plath legacy? As we look toward the future, the fallout from the Plath family implosion is far from over. Olivia Plath has officially announced her departure from future seasons, choosing to protect her peace and build a life in Washington, D.C., completely detached from the Plath name. For Ethan and the remaining siblings, the career damage and public perception challenges are immense. Reality television fame is notoriously fleeting, and when the shock value of a family's collapse wears off, they are often left with depleted financial assets and fractured real-world relationships. While some family members look for public redemption through new relationships and creative ventures, the legal and emotional loose ends remain tangled. The deep-seated ideological divide between the siblings who fully embraced the secular world and those who stayed behind could create a permanent generational rift. The brand of Welcome to Plathville may never recover its original intrigue, leaving behind a legacy defined not by faith, but by a spectacular, irreversible dissolution. In the end, the story of the Plath family is a haunting reminder that the walls we build to keep the world out are often the very walls that trap the darkness in. Kim and Barry Plath spent decades trying to engineer the perfect, uncorrupted family, only to prove that no amount of isolation can shield a human heart from its own complicated desires, flaws, and capacity for betrayal. They wanted to create a sanctuary, but instead, they built a stage for their own undoing. It leaves us with a chilling question. When the cameras finally turn off and the reality TV contracts expire, what is actually left of a family that sacrificed their privacy for fame, only to lose their souls in the process? What do you think was the ultimate breaking point for the Plath family? Was it Kim's sudden transformation, or was the marriage doomed from the very start? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more deep dive, investigative look into the hidden realities behind your favorite media stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next investigation. Just when the world thought the Plath family had reached its absolute breaking point, the facade didn't just crack, it turned nuclear. It's April 2026, and court documents in Minnesota's 1st District Court have just finalized the end of an era. Ethan and Olivia Plath are officially, legally divorced. But if fans thought the signature on those papers would bring peace, they were dead wrong. It unlocked a toxic floodgate of raw, unfiltered retaliation. Suddenly, leaked audio, private journal entries, and explosive allegations of a family hit list, abuse, and systemic racism began surfacing online. And as the family gathered for what should have been a holy celebration, the sudden wedding of their devout daughter Lydia, the boiling resentment exploded into literal, physical violence behind the scenes. How did a family that started with barefoot hymns on a Georgia farm end up trading blows at a wedding and tearing each other apart in court records? To understand the terrifying acceleration of the Plath family downfall, we have to look directly at the cold, hard numbers of the April 2026 divorce decree. And the secret romance that collapsed right alongside it, the legal dissolution of Ethan and Olivia's marriage, exposed a stark, unvarnished reality that TLC cameras historically tried to gloss over. Public court records finalized in the spring of 2026 revealed a surprisingly bleak financial picture. Both parties completely waived the right to spousal support, with the court explicitly noting that neither Ethan nor Olivia had the financial stability to maintain the other. Ethan, listing his primary income solely from his TLC contracts at a modest $2,500 a month, walked away with little more than his bank accounts and his prized collection of classic cars, including a 1937 Plymouth valued at just $8,000. Olivia kept her media company and her independence. "She's purposely trying to make my life hell, trying to hold me up," Ethan bitterly told viewers, exposing the deep psychological wounds of a man who felt utterly trapped by his past. But the legal split wasn't Ethan's only failure in 2026. In a desperate bid to prove he could survive in the modern dating world, Ethan had gone public with a new girlfriend, Tegan Nichols. But behind the happy Instagram pictures lay the same old fatal flaw: avoidance. Reports confirmed that while Ethan claimed he would leave Georgia and move to Wisconsin to eliminate the long distance, he never did. By mid-2026, Tegan had given him the cold shoulder, leaving Ethan isolated once again, trapped in a loop of repeating the exact same mistakes that destroyed his first marriage. While Ethan was spiraling, the matriarch Kim Plath was orchestrating a desperate move to reclaim her territory. Moving back to the family farm, Kim attempted to scrub her image clean, leaning into a narrative of second chances while continuing her controversial relationship with Ken Palmer. But the true test of this fragile family piece arrived with Lydia Plath's lightning-fast engagement and subsequent wedding to Zach Wise the Wedding. And Olivia wasn't alone. Veronica, Micah's former partner, broke her silence with equal ferocity. She publicly branded the Plath family behavior as vile and abusive, specifically naming Micah and Lydia as active participants in a toxic family culture designed to protect the image of the parents at all costs. The internet became a highly chaotic battleground. On Reddit and TikTok, fans who had spent years defending the Plath's conservative values were suddenly forced to confront leaked audio tracks and private journal entries that painted an incredibly dark portrait of what happens when the cameras stop rolling. When you look past the sensational headlines of abuse allegations and wedding brawls, the human cost of this multi-year public collapse is horrifyingly visible on the children. Mariah Plath, once the rebellious wild child of the family, completely broke down under the weight of the family's toxic ecosystem. Seeking absolute distance from the chaos, she fled to Montana. The psychological toll manifested physically. Mariah revealed that her severe alopecia, an autoimmune condition brought on by extreme emotional stress, had returned, leaving her completely vulnerable as she tried to heal in isolation. The younger siblings, Amber, Kasha, and Mercy, are growing up in an environment where their parents' hypocrisy is broadcasted to millions of homes weekly. They watched their mother demand absolute purity, only to see her get arrested for a DUI and abandon the family farm, only to return to it when her secular life faced public backlash. The psychological whiplash these kids are enduring is a form of generational trauma playing out in real time for corporate profit. AS Season 8 of Welcome to Plathville continues to air through mid-2026. The ultimate fate of the Empire hangs by a thread. The show has transitioned from a fascinating subculture documentary into a raw, uncomfortable broadcast of a family's psychological decomposition. PR experts predict that the current level of dark, abusive allegations will inevitably force TLC's hand, making the show entirely unmarketable to mainstream advertisers. Without the unifying financial engine of the reality show, the Plaths will be left completely fractured. Ethan faces a future of deep emotional isolation. Kim and Barry's experimental parenting has successfully alienated nearly every single one of their adult children. The legacy of Plathville will not be one of faith, protection, or family values. It will go down in television history as a tragic, cautionary tale of how the pursuit of control and fame will ultimately destroy the very things you claim to love. The story of the Plaths proves a terrifying truth. You can run from the modern world, you can hide your children in the deep fields of Georgia, and you can preach perfection to millions of viewers. But the truth has a violent way of tearing its way out of the dark. The fortress of Plathville didn't fall because of secular corruption. It fell because its foundation was built on control instead of love. Now that the legal papers are dry and the family is shattered into opposing factions, whose side do you land on? Is Olivia finally exposing the true, dark reality of this fundamentalist family, or is she leading a bitter smear campaign against a broken household? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a real conversation. If you're captivated by the raw, unvarnished truth behind reality television's biggest lies, hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell, and stay tuned. The investigation doesn't stop here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next deep dive. Picture a freezing Wisconsin winter on Christmas Day. A man sits entirely alone in his car for hours, staring at a house he hasn't been invited into. He is waiting, hoping for a single plate of holiday leftovers from a woman who has grown deeply unsettled by his unannounced, cross-country persistence. This isn't a scene from a Hollywood stalking thriller. This is the raw reality of Ethan Plath, desperate to salvage a broken relationship with his ex-girlfriend Tegan Nichols by forcing a proximity she never asked for. As mid-2026 television broadcasts lay bare the absolute decomposition of the Plath family, the reality TV facade hasn't just slipped, it has completely shattered. Behind the glossy TLC editing lies a web of hidden psychological standoffs, secret engagements to married men, and a literal blood feud between brothers that required emergency hospital care. The fortress built on isolation has transformed into an active war zone where the weapons aren't just legal papers, but buried grief and public exposure. For months, the narrative presented to the public was that Ethan was a lovesick puppy, a victim of a harsh modern dating world trying his best to win back his new love interest Tegan. But investigative scrutiny and unedited footage paint a far more concerning picture of psychological avoidance. According to insider reports and recent episodes, Ethan made the radical choice to move across the country to Tegan's small hometown months after they had completely stopped speaking. He spent the day alone in his car, just waiting and hoping. That is not the behavior of a stable person. Viewers observed online, noting the eerie parallels to the control patterns that originally suffocated his marriage to Olivia. Tegan's on-screen body language shifted from polite distance to visible caution. To the public, the Plath family tried to spin the narrative, with Kim publicly slamming Tegan's family for feeding him scraps like a dog on Christmas. But sources close to production suggest the truth was far simpler. Tegan, a mother protecting her child, was deeply intimidated by a man refusing to accept a boundary. Ethan's profound inability to communicate has morphed into a public spectacle of isolation, a man sleeping in his car in freezing temperatures because the alternative is facing the quiet void of his own identity. But while Ethan was isolating himself in the Midwest, a far more explosive, physical confrontation was brewing in the American South. During the high-stakes,